All right, we're live and ready to go.
Okay, 6:11. Hi, Tiffany. Thanks for joining. So at 6:11, we will call this meeting to order. The first item of business is public comment. Don't see anybody else apart from our guests here for public comment. So I'll go to the next item, number 3, which is member check-ins. I guess I'll go ahead and start that off. I've been spending a lot of time getting my yard ready for a big bunch of native plantings that we're going to be doing. So we're doing the backyard habitat certification program, and I've been digging up a bunch of grass. So that's been fun, and that's I guess that's the big thing for us right now. And I'll hand it off to Victoria.
Yeah, I just remember when I did that with the grass, but I didn't dig it up. I just covered it with cardboard. So yeah, that's okay. So what's up? Got the first tomato today. That was pretty exciting. Been waiting for 10 months for the first fresh tomato. And
Excellent.
planted those in early April in the kitchen, and I've only got one today. So also I want you to know that I've been checking on Dan Reeser's garden. His vegetable plot is close to mine, and took him some produce. He said he's doing well. He misses his garden a lot, and he has another couple months of treatments. So yeah. Greg?
Sure. I also touched base with Dan. He said that it's chemo is chemo, but the cancer is shrinking, so that's really good. So he's really hopeful that he'll be able to be back and joining us in January, and said he's really looking forward to the holidays when all of this is a distant memory. So
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
be thinking about it for sure, because I know it's not easy. With regard to my news, I've been doing a dance with at least one very large mole and maybe a lot of smaller moles for the past several weeks, and Victoria had suggested getting some castor oil, so I did get some castor oil at Safeway and poured it down the holes, and the the gopher has just become more active. It's like it's deciding that it is determined to kind of keep me busy. So I keep on thinking of other things, but I actually am beginning to think of maybe a professional before much longer. So it's an amazingly persistent mole.
It's really hard to find coyote pee. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing coyote pee. That would be good.
All right.
Oh, so Dylan.
Nothing really. I can share more in the agenda item for the contract. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess then Tiffany.
Well, I just sent over a draft social media plan to Mike and Greg today, but that's really all the news I have. I don't think I have anything else.
Okay, thank you.
I'm looking forward to that, Tiffany.
Yes, it was great to see, Tiffany. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I can forward that to the rest of the members.
Okay.
And Jenny Ann and Nicole, if you want to share a little bit about anything that you're up to, feel free.
Oh, go ahead. It sounds like you guys like to talk about gardening. I brought lots of mulch from a friend who didn't need it all. I would love to rip up our grass. My husband is not on board. And I would love to do the natives certification. I've looked into that. Not quite there.
Cool.
It's a great program.
Yeah.
I don't have much to share. I just moved back here. I grew up in West Linn and then went away to college in Nashville. My parents still live here, and so I just got back. So I'm just kind of still settling in a little bit, but I appreciate how nice and cool it's been compared to the southern heat and humidity.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Particularly now. It's really lovely weather right now. So how long have you been back in West Linn?
I think less than a week.
Less than a week. Wow. So you've had the nice cool weather.
Welcome back.
Well, And here you are so soon. That's great.
Mhm.
Yeah, yep. Just drove back and now I'm here.
She
So did you
joined our
take-
group even before
Did-
she moved. She was an active member, so that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Right.
Oh,
So
awesome.
did you take courses
Great.
from Jim Hartman when you were at Westland High School?
I did. I took AP Environmental Science with him.
Nice. Yeah.
hmm
All
Still,
three of my
still I
sons did
find
that.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, so let's see. Agenda item number 4 is the approval of the June meeting minutes, but I think we said we were going to table that for next time. So I guess we can just jump right into agenda item number 5, welcoming the Friends of the Willamette Wetlands. They're here to share a little bit about what's going on with the wetlands and what their organization is up to. So I'll just open the floor up to y'all. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for having us. We're really glad to connect with you. My name is Jenny Ann Workman, and I walk the wetlands. I kind of live on the other edge of Willamette. I guess I'm sort of a founding member. I set up the website, made the email, kind of accidentally took on a lot more like administrative responsibilities than I have time for. So I'm so happy Nicole is here to help me with this. And we also have recently organized a management committee to help us because there's a lot we can do. But Nicole is a younger generation and has a wonderful presentation. So I'm so happy she has that.
Yep. So I'm Nicole. I kind of gave some background already. I grew up here, just moved back. I live kind of off of Rosemont Road, but I frequent this area often. I walk by the wetlands. I've seen river otters there, which was a really special moment. And I sort of found Jenny Ann's sort of outreach in her website and got connected that way. So to kind of give you guys a better overview of Friends of Willamette Wetlands and what we're doing, I just kind of created a brief slideshow presentation just to kind of have some visuals that you can kind of look at as we talk. So hopefully, I've not shared through WebEx before, so hopefully it will cooperate with me here. Let's do this. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Okay, so, all right, so we're Friends of Willamette Wetlands, and one thing I just wanted to make a note of kind of before we go any further is all the wildlife photographs that you see in this presentation are photos that have been taken by a local wildlife photographer in this area. So none of these are stock images. These are just all the different wildlife that we have in this area. So who we are, we're a community organization dedicated to protecting and preserving the thriving, diverse ecosystem of the Willamette Wetlands. As Jenny Ann mentioned, we are a 6-person management team. We're 2 of those management committee members, and we have 40 volunteers and growing.
Our emails go out to over 200 people.
Okay.
And sorry,
Yeah,
but those
ahead.
people are not all volunteering, but and there's nearly,
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, never mind.
There's so much to share. So our mission as the Friends of Willamette Wetlands is working to protect just under 35 acres of wetland and riparian habitat along the Willamette River from development with the intention of preserving the wetland for the existing wildlife that is already thriving there. So some of the unique features about this area in particular, it's Westland's largest wetland. It drains into Burnett Creek, which feeds the Willamette River. There's no development to the river's edge, which is unique for the area. And there's a wide variety of wildlife, including beavers, river otters, herons, eagles, vultures, coyotes, hawks, salamanders, fish, etc. So this is just a photo of the water resource area map, which I've linked, and I'm happy to share this presentation with you afterwards so you can kind of have it to refer to. But the area kind of in question, if you can see my mouse, is just right along here. So this is a pretty significant area of the wetland where we've seen a lot of this habitat and wildlife. So the reason why we're here today, is that there is currently a planned unit development for this area. And this is just phase 1. And I will note that this is still the pre-application phase. So anything that we sort of speak to on this is not the official application. So this is just kind of going off of what we have already seen from the pre-application. So as you can kind of see, there's about 26 duplexes that are planned to go in, so 52 total units, with half of those along Fifth Avenue and then half being on a private driveway. And if you can kind of look, there's like this little squiggly line that runs along here. That's the wetland delineation boundary. And typically you want at least 100-foot buffer from that boundary line. And right along here, units 1 through 10, maybe even 11 and 12, the kind of proposed structures themselves are either right on that boundary line or pretty close to it. And while it's, the wetland is right there, there's also significant habitat that kind of supports the wetland and riparian habitat as well. So this is kind of our areas of concern, reasons why we're bringing this up. First of all, part of the development is located within the FEMA floodplain zone. And there's also, as I mentioned, development within the 100-foot wetland buffer zone. With all of this development that has been planned, there's going to be a substantial increase in traffic. We're guessing at least 1 to 2 vehicles per unit. So that's at least 50 to 100 cars that are going to be driving through this area that is currently pretty pedestrian, I would say. It's a pretty common walking path. So we're also concerned about the potential road conflict with wildlife that's used to having a pretty quiet neighborhood to exist in. And with that, the current infrastructure surrounding this area will not be able to support the high influx of traffic. And we've been told by the city that they really won't improve the infrastructure until it becomes an issue.
Oh.
Further adding to that is that Fifth Avenue is a safe route to school. And I have a couple maps that I'm going to follow up with these points in the next couple slides. But Fifth Avenue is a safe route to school. And this development will significantly, again, increase traffic. So kids who are walking to Willamette Primary, there's cars driving now, but there's going to be a significant increase. This area is also designated as Title 13 habitat in terms of low, moderate to high significance of habitat for wetland and riparian species. There's also been talks of taking the current holding pond that is sort of just south of the wetland itself, that's kind of been used by the paper mill, to remediate it and then put a hotel on top of it, which sort of further isolates the species. If you have the housing development and a hotel, you're kind of blocking them in and continuing to increase traffic. And the final sort of key point or area of concern is the natural hazards mitigation plan that Westland has created, which sort of highlights properties and areas where there's more risks of flooding, landslides, earthquakes, etc. And I'll kind of show you a map here in the next few slides to kind of highlight the concerns. So the first one I wanted to point out was the FEMA flood hazard zone map. So not the whole development, but at least from this kind of estimated map, there is a section of the development where homes will be within the flood hazard zone. So that's just kind of
It looks like a significant portion,
yeah, a
right?
significant
Coming up 4th Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then to continue on, there's a Westland level of property vulnerability map that I came across as part of the natural hazards mitigation plan. And on the left side, you'll see this is sort of the whole city map. And then zoomed in on the property that we're concerned about, it has the highest number of hazards by property. So that's, again, floods, landslides, because there are steep slopes, especially where he plans to develop and put housing, earthquakes as well. And when you add at least 100 people or more, that also can put a significant strain, I'm sure, on our first responders should there be any sort of emergency that occurs in this area.
And the infrastructure to get into the neighborhood, I'm sure, as you guys are aware, is already not great for emergency access.
Yeah.
And
Nope.
we've heard a number of, not from the developer, but there could be, you know, an increased 500 traffic trips per day along Fifth Avenue. Or then people, of course, are probably going to try to go to Volp, which is even more in some spots.
Yeah.
Narrow.
Yeah. And then one other thing I wanted to just point out while we're on this slide is while I was looking at the sustainability strategic plan, I did come across there were some goals and strategies to reduce the number of people living in high risk hazardous areas. And so that's kind of something to kind of tie into you guys and what you do and what you're involved with. You know, we're not against development, but we do think there is some sort of duty to ensure that people are not being put at undue risk in this city. So then the last kind of map that I just wanted to show is the safe routes to schools. So here you can see Fifth Avenue, and right now the route only extends just past 8th Avenue, but as there's an increase of traffic, there's a very good chance that there will be more cars traveling down Fifth Avenue, especially in rush hour times, maybe trying to get to a roundabout or stop sign, so it's easier for them to turn. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. So the current status with all of this, as I mentioned before, the development is in the pre-application phase, and we are waiting on the official application, which is expected sometime this fall. We don't know exactly when, we just know sometime this fall. On our end, we are working to become a 501c3 nonprofit. That's in progress, pending. And Jenny Ann set up a petition that now has almost 1,500 signatures with people who want to preserve and protect this wetland.
We know the city has been very clear that a petition doesn't matter to them. The main reason the petition was set up to help educate the public, and the more people who are aware, the more networking we can do, the better our chances are of fighting this development.
Sorry.
So when we talk about kind of the community connection, we're looking sort of at the Willamette waterfront vision, which is, you know, in progress and works. And from survey data that I found, a lot of residents want to keep the wetlands protected. It's sort of been reiterated. So as we're looking to, you know, see what this area might look like and be developed into, I think there really should be a focus on preserving the natural resources that we already have that are already kind of dwindling. And where else can you see beavers and river otters on a paved walking path or paved road that's super accessible and easy to get to? I personally walk along Willamette Park, and I walk along that walk and bike path to then get there. And I know there are plenty of other people who run and walk their dogs through there. So it's sort of become this unofficial path park already. There's also a bunch of educational opportunities. As we kind of mentioned before, I took AP Environmental Science, and we would often do little field trips to different parks and neighborhoods and look for owls. And I can see this being a great way to kind of show significant wildlife just in your own backyard. And the last kind of key point that we wanted to talk about for community connection is in the 20-year master plan for West Linn Parks and Recreation from March 2019. It did identify this property as becoming a planned riverfront park. So this property was formerly owned by Clackamas Water Environment Services, and for whatever reason, they decided to sell it in 2020. And I have currently submitted a public records request to them to figure out why exactly they sold the property. I don't know exactly when I'll get that information back, but that is in progress. But it was planned to be sort of a place for the community to get involved.
And the city did have a chance to purchase it. I don't know if it was at that 2020 time or earlier.
It might have been earlier. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, if, you know, it just fell through or what.
Yeah, it's a bit mysterious. Probably the pond requiring, you know, expensive remediation was not super attractive.
Yeah, but there were plans by Clackamas Water and Environment Services to remediate, and then I guess they just decided not to. So we will we'll see.
We'll be working on this.
Yeah. But so why wetlands? So 40% of Oregon's wetlands have been drained, diked, or filled since settlement. 53% of Western Oregon's wetlands have been lost to development or converted to other uses like agriculture. Nationally, nearly 35% of all rare and endangered animal species depend on wetlands, and I believe almost 50% engage with wetlands at least some point in their life. So there's a lot of species that depend on wetlands, and removing them is pretty significant, and it's going to decrease their habitat and potentially lead to further extinction of significant species. I also saw there was a data point that in the Willamette Valley alone, roughly 500 acres of wetlands are lost each year. That was from 2000, so who knows how much has been lost since then. But the Oregon Department of State Lands says that wetlands help communities during storms. They help remove pollutants and chemicals from water. They sort of have a natural filtration process, and they provide important fish and wildlife habitat. Especially with the current beaver that lives there, beavers provide important habitat to a lot of fish species, such as juvenile coho and Chinook salmon. So our goals and visions for the future, our realistic goal, because we know we sometimes have to be realistic, even though we want to be aspirational, is to at least significantly reduce and mitigate the development size and encroachment on the wetland boundary and riparian habitat. So we want to do sort of a wetland mitigation to preserve and protect the current wetlands and the publisher's pond, because even though there are toxins there, the wildlife still uses it and the wildlife thrives despite it. Our perfect world would be no development at all. But that's, again, a perfect world. So we want to do our best to mitigate and protect and preserve and restore the area.
I just want to jump in really fast. The developer is going to use the word mitigate a lot. They used it a lot in their neighborhood meeting. And I may be speaking for myself, but the type of mitigation that they are saying that they think they can mitigate these 26 duplexes, that is not the type of mitigation we are talking about. Yeah. We're talking about preserving and doing some improvements, but let's not we're going to destroy this side, but then we're going to mitigate it and it's going to be better. I don't know anyone who really believes that.
Yeah. Because once you develop, there's a good chance that wildlife is going to go somewhere else. And to bring them back is going to be...
Well, the development process in itself, it could be several years and
Yeah. So again, then to reiterate, as we're thinking about the Willamette waterfront vision, how we sort of want it to look, there's going to be developments for parts of it or more developed commercial districts. But we think what better way to sort of highlight the diversity that Westland has to offer by keeping this natural resource as sort of a gateway to then walk to the other parts of the Willamette waterfront and to be able to connect back and forth rather than having a hotel and a bunch of homes. Again, we're not against development, but we think when we have such a special resource right in our backyard, why should we build on it? And then the city of Westland has their 2030 and 2040 goals as well. And I know in the strategic plan, there's goals as well for 2040. So as we think about that and we look to the future, this is like a habitat that we have, and these habitats are dwindling. We should be doing our best efforts to protect them as best we can so that people in 2040 can continue to enjoy this beautiful wildlife area. And then one kind of last key thing that we just wanted to highlight is key quotes from the Sustainability Strategic Plan. So one of them is achieving no net loss of wetlands, streams, and riparian corridors, maintaining current acreage, adopting land use regulations that establish appropriate wetland, stream, and shoreline buffer widths, incentivizing permanent land conservation, protecting, enhancing, and restoring nature ecosystems, promote habitat management, restoration, and ongoing maintenance of private land, and implementing local and market-based financing strategies to acquire land or development easements or fund restoration and maintenance activities that provide key connections between natural areas. And I'm sure you guys are very familiar with the Sustainability Strategic Plan, but I just kind of wanted to highlight parts that are relevant to our group, and I'm sure to you as well. So to kind of close, we just wanted to share some more wildlife photos. There's an incredible gallery that Jenny Ann has put together on the Friends of Willamette Wetlands website. So bald eagles, coyotes, river otters, beavers, minks, great blue heron, western bluebird, wood ducks, great egret, grosbeak, turkey vulture, and red-tailed hawk. These are just some of the people that, or species, animals are people too, that live in this area. So thank you so much for listening to our presentation. I'm sure you guys might have some questions. So I would like to open the floor to questions now.
Sure.
Thank you.
I guess thank you so much for putting that together. That was very informative. I think my first question is in terms of actually going about the work of preserving this and pushing back on development. What is the formal strategy there? Like, how do you approach the city? What are we expecting of them? Is there a set of codes that we are like going to be pointing to? Like, just what's the framework for opposing this on a more formal level?
I will say what I understand, and then Nicole can fill in. So the city has been very clear that we cannot oppose it from an emotional or even an environmental standpoint. We must find code that is being violated. So we are looking at code, and the more eyes we have on code, the better. Some clear violations of code have to do with the floodplain, which you're not allowed to build within the floodplain, but it is within the floodplain. And the private road, they're asking for is it 4 times more driveways to access that?
So the current code for private drives allows 4 units. They want to put, I believe, 12 duplexes. So however the math ends up, it would be 4 to 6 times this current city code standard. So they would likely need to put in a full city level street rather than having a private drive unless they ask for a variance.
So there's also significant concerns within the neighborhood, of course, about traffic and accessibility and safety. The city has not been extremely, it hasn't been very optimistic discussion about the city's reaction to those concerns. They've kind of said development drives infrastructure, like the development must come first. But there's going to be traffic surveys, and we will be coming at it from every possible objective, way to object that we can.
Yeah. So in terms of the process itself, I believe it's going to go to the Planning Commission first, and we are going to appeal based on city code. That's why we're kind of in this holding pattern, because we're waiting for the official application to then find the direct violations. But yeah, we'll be appealing that, and likely it will go
if it passes.
Yeah.
So we have the public comment period, right?
Yes. And so we'll ultimately try to appeal it if it goes through. That will then go to the city council, and depending on how they rule, I believe we can appeal that as well as a LUBA appeal. And we are in early stages talking with an environmental law firm that may be able to offer some assistance and guidance in this process. We have to wait until the official application is submitted before they can, deem if they can or cannot take this project on. But they've looked at the initial pre-application, and we feel optimistic that if it kind of stays in its current state, that we'll have some good talking points. The key thing is going to be where he asks for variances on the development. Those are the biggest gray areas that we can argue because they're not necessarily rooted in city code.
The other area that is possibly got some gray area is that he's going to try to do the Oh, on the wetland buffer zone, help me with the word, Nicole.
Alternative.
The alternative review
Alter-
process,
right.
right? Yeah, and so
Because it's already a disturbed wetland, right? Is the alternative review process used like when a natural resource has already been disturbed? I know that that's how the changes in, like, the alternative review process is used for the developments on 9th Street, for example.
So I'm not sure about that part, but I think we're possibly on the same page where they're going to say they're going to make it better. You know, so their mitigation efforts will be equal to or better than its current state. And I think that's also an area that we will do as much research as we can to discuss about, you know, to discuss the reason for the 100-foot buffer zone and what is their reasoning that this buffer zone is essentially not needed. So that's going to be another important way to approach this development plan.
I've got a question as well. I was kind of distributing just notifications about the meeting 3 or 4 weeks ago, and saw one of my neighbors who had been involved primarily dealing with water issues throughout his career in development. And Jerry's point was that he really felt it was important to kind of utilize that hillside for development, because if lands within the urban growth boundary are not used, then it means more of the prime farmland out by Canby will in fact come into the urban growth boundary and be used. And what do we want to preserve? Steep, like hillsides like those that are kind of next to the wetlands, or prime farmland. And so it's an ongoing challenge just to figure out how to place ourselves with regard to those kinds of similar but contrasting values. And so after talking with Jerry, I began kind of exploring alternative design possibilities for this land. So rather than using duplexes, use fourplexes, very systematically located in the area that would kind of minimize the impact on the wetland, and try to create a development more similar to what actually exists up at Cascade Summit, just up on Salamo, where you have a lot of open area with the remaining white oak trees up there, and the housing kind of scattered in that. And so I sent to city staff an example of a development that happened in the early 2000s in North Portland, where a wetland was preserved and the housing was situated in such a way that much of the natural environment was in fact maintained. And so I'm wondering, like, how much the Willamette Wetlands Group would be interested in collaborating with, in conversations with Mr. Schultz about coming up with a design process that would actually maintain much more of the integrity of the environment than is being maintained at the moment. And also seeing, like, whether or not, in terms of dealing with the safety issues, he would be willing to put in the extra block of sidewalk that needs to be put in on 5th Street so that kids would have sidewalks all the way from the development to the school, as well as dealing with the problem of 6th Street and the fact that it's really dangerous going over that hill. So it seems like there are ways in which the plan could be potentially modified to really address neighborhood needs, while still kind of recognizing his investment in that property and the need for more housing. So it's I've been really struggling to figure out how to find some kind of middle path through this that would please both the folks who live here. And I live down on Volp Street, so I have an interest in kind of maintaining the integrity of this landscape, but also kind of recognizing the need for more housing as well. So just out of curiosity, do you think that there's a willingness on the part of the Willamette Wetlands Group to really consider that possibility?
Again, our realistic goal or our realistic understanding is that, development is possible. I do think with his current plan, the sort of size and scope of it just really isn't feasible. If he wanted to reduce reduce the size and scope and sort of impact directly on the wetlands, I think that would be something that we would be interested in seeing what he had in mind. Again, I don't know if he would be willing to do that just based on previous developments that we've seen him attempt in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. I do know from reviewing Westland's sort of compliance with HB 2003
Right.
to support more housing, they did not identify this property as a key area to meet their compliance. And when you look at some of the other areas that they do sort of identify for building and development, they do have significantly less hazards. And I mean, any sort of building, you're going to lose some wildlife, but I do feel like when you have such a significant resource and it's Westland's largest wetland,
Right.
it's just it's hard when there's other areas that could be developed, but we do understand he has an investment in this property, but it would just, I don't know how much willingness he would have to work with us in that aspect, given I don't know if you attended the Willamette Neighborhood Association
I did.
meeting.
Yeah, I was there.
They seemed like they were only there because they had to be there. That was just my interpretation, but Jenny Ann, if you want to add anything on that.
We definitely need new housing. It's very unfortunate that there's no requirement that it has to be affordable housing.
Yes.
John Floyd has informed us, Oregon made this new guideline, but it doesn't have to be affordable. On my road, they just put in 3 little narrow houses, and they cost more than my large house cost. But I also, I live in a developed neighborhood, and there was an empty lot, and that was an appropriate spot to build. I don't love the location of this spot due to the wetland, but I also feel like, thinking of our longer term goals, it's very likely that there will be development along this part. Hopefully it can be not this very dense proposed housing. And also if there's less houses, the lots do not have to be so long and narrow and extend so significantly into the wetland, right?
Yeah.
So that would be definitely something we would like to see. I feel strongly that there is a longer term vision for the rest of that property. I've been told, and I'm not overly familiar with the Willamette River frontage, but that it's quite unique in the area, not just for us, but for the greater metro area. And it would be a wonderful area to preserve and enhance. Eventually, when they open the locks, there will be kayak traffic going through. So, yeah, I think I lost. I think we would be willing to dialogue with Mr. Schultz. I think that's a good idea. I've had a little bit of one-on-one interaction with him, and I also am not overly optimistic. But it's definitely worth trying. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's ultimately because Mr. Schultz has made an investment here and it is his property that, like, as long as he comes up with a plan that is code compliant, he's likely to get a green light from the city.
That is what the city is telling us. I think they want to be extremely careful not to create false hope.
I would hope he would engage in a dialogue about changing his plans. I don't personally like the idea of a development plan that seems on the face of it to be looking to just slam as many houses onto that property as they possibly can. Like that's development in his interest rather than in the community interest. And I just don't think that anybody here is into that. He doesn't even live here, right?
He does
He
live
does.
here,
He does. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He lived, I think, in Wisconsin for a while, but I think
but he does live
he
here
does.
now.
Yeah. I'm not-
Okay.
The city has been, they really don't want to say the wrong thing, right? So they keep saying it has to violate code, it has to violate code. They also do not appear to believe that the current proposal, which the pre-application proposal is nowhere near meeting code. Is the impression that I have got, that that's not going to fly.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that that is going to be what they're going to return.
Yeah.
Just from the little, pieces of rumors that we hear.
And the initial staff summary notes to the pre-application cited multiple sources of code that would need to be looked at. And given we have a map, but it's sort of a very vague map, so we don't know the exact scale and size.
And this
buildings,
staff notes also said we need more information repeatedly, as we did in the meeting.
Yeah.
Do you, as a committee, have anything that you would suggest to us? I know Greg suggested, having a dialogue, being open to compromise.
Yeah.
We love the strategic plan. We wish it was code, right?
Yes.
And it's very unfortunate that it doesn't seem to have a lot of teeth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think the only other suggestion I would have, rather than simply talking about earthquake, like the hazard in the area, like where the hotel would be potentially situated, like on the old Publisher Ponds, liquefaction is a really major issue down there. And it was something that was mentioned in Dylan's report with regard to Westland hazards. And so since I live down here, I'm very cognizant of the fact that if there were a major earthquake, our home, chances are, would become unlivable. And so, like, if there were a major multi-million-dollar development put into that particular area, there's a good chance that all the value would be lost and all you'd be left with is ruins. I was in Christchurch, New Zealand, back in 2 years after the earthquake they had there. And they had this huge new rugby stadium that was no longer going to be able to be usable and would just simply have to be torn down. And so that is like a real hazard in a place that is so close to the river and where liquefaction is almost certain to happen. And so it seems like that one is probably good to just let folks know.
Whose report did you say? Dylan's report?
Oh, Dylan had done like the Westland Hazards report, which is superb.
Oh, okay.
If you haven't read it, you should go through it. It's really an excellent piece of
That's the Dylan.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's the Dylan.
Will the planning commission or the city council ask you guys for advice or direction, or is that not like a certain followed procedure?
It's not a certain followed procedure.
They can, but there haven't been a very large number of issues where the city has come to us asking about decisions that they're faced with.
Right. I don't know, Dylan, would it be appropriate for us to write a letter to the planning commission or the city council, just kind of expressing our interest in the issue?
I was just about to jump in because it is a land use thing. It's actually good that Lou's not here because there are bias issues and things.
Yeah.
And this group being like a group that is appointed by city council, and the decision might get to city council. So there could be some issues with things like that. If it's something was of interest, I would have to ask legal. So it's not something that happens often, so I'm not quite sure. We'd have to check.
Yeah.
So like what I'm hearing would it be okay for you to volunteer your opinion or your thoughts without being asked? Is that kind of what the question is?
I think we could probably do it individually, but not say anything about our membership on the Sustainability Advisory.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not as if the council members don't know who we are, though.
That's right.
So then that is a bias problem if you give your thoughts. Is that kind of what you mean by saying that they know who you are?
I think what we might be looking at is that because we are in some sense like an extension of the city council, like as an advisory committee,
Okay.
that if we testify on behalf of the board itself, then that could, be some sort of conflict there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. More sense. I guess I wasn't thinking of you guys sort of as an extension. So I understand that now. Thank you.
And so I guess the question, Dylan, for you is, if we were to write letters, just as individual citizens, not members of the SAB, would that be okay, or would it basically, create a problem with bias?
I personally don't think that would be a problem. I think you're always entitled to your individual opinions as citizens and everything. Yeah, I can't see that being a problem. But if you did want to do something as a group, I mean, if there's interest, I can check with legal. I just don't know.
I would wonder also, if you can write a letter, can you make a public comment? And perhaps that would be uncomfortable to, straddle that boundary. But as an individual, depending on how strongly you feel.
And when you say public comment,
I don't think
when you say public comment, would that mean like having a letter in the newspaper?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm referring to after the application is received by the city, and then they keep telling us that that's when we can make our public comments. That's when we are allowed to give feedback on this proposed construction. So we maybe have jumped the gun a little bit and talked about it a lot, and we're getting the message like, no, this is not the time. We don't want these comments yet. You need to make them during the public comment period. And so I think there's a lot of comments that can come up at that time. And what I'm saying is, if you want to write a letter, could you not public comment if that was your choice? But again, that's totally up to you. I guess I'm just thinking out loud. And if that was a problem, like if that was
a comment.
No.
Yeah, I think if we're able to write a letter as a private community member, then public comment just the same.
Yeah.
And I would be interested in the question as to whether or not we can identify ourselves as members of this body, in presumably there's going to be public meetings where this development plan is scrutinized and voted upon, and if we are able to testify on behalf of the board, I think that could at least give a little bit more weight, provided we're allowed to do so. So I would be interested in that question, Dylan, if you could take that to the legal team and see what the boundaries are there.
It seems to me, and I have no like government knowledge, but when I think sustainability committee, it almost sounds like that is your role, that they would want to hear from you. Like that feels, because on topics around sustainability, I don't know. Yeah, but there's a lot of legal issues apparently.
Is there a sense for the timeline on when the formal application is going to be made, when the planning commission might take that up?
Yeah. So again, we were only told sometime this fall in terms of when that official application would be submitted. So it could be September, could be October.
There was a rumor that said soon.
Yeah.
We, lots of rumors. But
yeah. So Yeah.
who knows what soon means, right?
Yeah, and then the planning commission timeline, I believe they have a set amount of time to sort of review and respond. It's either 90 or 120 days. It's something in there, but it could be sooner than that. I think there's just sort of a delineated amount of time.
Like they can't take longer
Yeah.
than that. Yeah.
So we'll just kind of have to see how this plays out when it goes and nail down the dates for when to expect, you know,
It will-
different phases.
It will be really important for us to understand the city's processes and communicate them to the public, because it does seem a little, I don't know, if complicated is the right word, but
Nuanced.
nuanced and maybe rigid's not the right word either. But like, there's your timeline. Don't miss it.
Yep. So, Dylan, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but when public comments are given for these types of applications, what kind of responsibility does that lay upon the planning commission or the applicant? Like, do they have to respond individually to these comments? Do we know?
I'm not familiar enough with the land use process. There are opportunities for the applicant to respond and back and forth. It kind of depends on what stage, if it's the appeal or, but yeah, I don't know enough detail. I don't know that
I'm just curious as to if there's a requirement that like every comment they offer, you know, every comment that's given that they have to provide a response. And so if there's a huge public outcry and we get 10,000 comments, like does that burden them with the responsibility of having to answer each individual comment? Curious about that.
That is a very good question. We wonder that too.
Yeah. I definitely think there's no, in terms of during city council meetings, I don't know if there's each person is limited to maybe 3 minutes to speak on something, but I don't believe there's a limit to how many people can speak. So if we wanted to get enough people to have it be the longest running city council meeting.
Well, and I think it's a different process. I don't know if it would be an actual regular city council meeting, because I think it would be an appeal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does sound like a bit nuanced.
We're nailing down the details.
I believe representatives from advisory committees are allowed 5 minutes of public comment as well.
There's a very excited dog that is wanting to join the meeting.
Well, I move the dog be allowed to join the meeting.
The dog not be allowed to join the meeting.
A second.
So any questions from Victoria or Tiffany?
No, not for me. Great presentation.
No suggestions. I'm just so grateful to have learned so much. I'm astounded at the amount that you two know, and so grateful for the work you've done to put your energies into this, and it's just really a relief to know that you're doing this and finding ways that we can back you up. And I'm also so busy taking notes that I don't have a question in my head.
Well, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out. And if you ever want to walk by the wetlands with us, I'm sure Jenny and I would love to host either of you for a little walk and talk. Yeah.
I love that. I have actually not seen
Nice.
them.
Oh, well, then we should set up a time for you to see them.
Okay, so can we do that in separate email?
Absolutely.
That would be great.
And
Thank
Carol
you.
Bright is going to be doing a walk. I don't know whether she's going to be going to the wetlands on Saturday or not, but that might be a good time to come down when Carol, I think she does a regular walk with constituents. And so this weekend on Saturday, she'll be in Willamette Park. Do you remember the time?
I think it's on Sunday, the 18th.
Yeah.
Oh, Sunday.
At
Okay.
11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, we emailed that out to our group today and encourage people to go, talk with her about the wetlands, and it would be lovely if she would like to walk past them.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll kind of, we won't speak to the development itself, but just highlight
right.
the wetlands to her.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then I think we can say thank you for joining us. We'll certainly continue to be in touch with you.
Great. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you very
hosting
much.
us, having us speak. We really appreciate it.
Great
Oh,
Of
presentation,
course, appreciate
Nicole.
you coming.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank you for
very
sharing.
All right. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
really good.
Bye.
Okay. Let's see. Next order of business here is, I guess we had hoped that the good company or parametrics might have been able to attend tonight, but in their absence, I think Dylan, you said you might have a little bit to share with us about their proposal.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much ready for signing. I wondered if the group had any more comments on it, if you are all comfortable enough for me to move forward with executing the contract. I'm not quite sure what else. I think it's kind of the way that they are describing it. They're just going to we're going to be working alongside them. We're going to loop you all into it and kind of decide on direction together. They're scheduled to come meet with us like 4 times with the SAB.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there'll be email traffic in between and, so yeah, I think I wanted to check in with everyone here, see if you're comfortable or if you want me to wait to do the contract until we can get them to a meeting in the future. I wasn't quite sure if they would be willing to come until the contract was signed anyway, but
Right.
so any thoughts you guys have?
Well, it looked like the proposal that they sent over essentially was our request for a proposal. It was just, with some numbers attached to it. So I don't know if I can really read too much into that apart from them just kind of agreeing to do what we've asked them to do.
I guess I did ask Mike just in terms how they were going to coordinate things, and there's going to be one point person who will be our primary contact, and so I think that should kind of ease the communication piece that I was a little worried about in terms of having so many people involved. With not exactly a gigantic contract, and so that reassured me.
Yeah, I was happy to see that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I personally don't think that I would want to hold off on getting them started.
Right.
Okay, sounds good. We'll move forward. They sent a certificate of insurance today, so that's kind of we've got all the contractual pieces worked
Good.
out. Our legals looked at the contract, and there's been a little back and forth on some language, but I think we're pretty close to getting it all done and actually getting the work going.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
Dylan, for what you've done to kind of see this through as well.
My God, yes.
Sure.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you,
I know
Dylan.
everything takes a while with
Yeah.
so many competing priorities.
Well,
Things are happening though, and we're happy about that.
how many years
Yeah.
have we been hoping for this? And to see that there's actually a contract ready to sign is, jaw dropper. It's lovely. So
Yeah. Well,
I'm stoked.
I'll move it forward, and then I will keep you updated as we hear from them as they start
Great.
reviewing our plans and helping give us some direction.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, moving on then. Agenda item number 7. Wanted to just kind of open up the floor to Tiffany to talk about a kind of renewed social media push public outreach effort, just to kind of get her thoughts out into the group and see what you might be able to tell us, Dylan, as far as what we can and can't do as a advisory group.
Yeah, so I put together a slide deck, and I'm going to attempt to share. 1 second.
Okay, I can see it now.
Yep. Okay. The idea is that I kind of feel like we need to develop a brand around who we are and what we're doing in the community, and along with the city. And so I thought an effective strategy as a first run at it would be to build a social media plan that can help establish exactly who we are and what we're about. And what I wanted to do was start small. I'm a big believer of aim small, miss small type of philosophy. What I wanted to start with is I have a table of contents, and basically just first of all establishing who we are in the marketplace, making sure that we're targeting the right community of people, and then we can decide collectively what our goals should be, but I have them outlined here, and then an action plan. And this is just something I pulled off the sustainability strategic plan and off the website. And this just talks about who we are and what we do. And there's no surprise here. We're trying to help people live a more quality of life by, frankly, being more sustainable and being the best we can be to help maintain that in our community and in our day-to-day life. Here are the target audiences that I recommend. So again, homeowners, the community at large, and then local businesses. And then what I have for goals and objectives are, the first thing is brand awareness. I don't know how much we've done in the past in terms of social media. I know there are some YouTube videos out there and things like that. But what I wanted to do was really kind of put a stake in the ground of who we are and what we're about, and start talking to the community about that very thing. And with that, we should be able to grow a pretty solid following. It's not going to happen in a day. It might not happen in a month. It might take 6 months. But I think if we keep chipping away at it and we keep putting information out in the marketplace that attract attention and engage people of things that they can do in their day-to-day lives that make sense for them financially and in every other way that speaks to sustainability overall, I think that's a big win right there. And then improving our community engagement. And by that, I mean, going back and figuring out what we've done well and where we can move the ball forward on those things. What can we improve on? How can we create an idea that maybe we had a year ago and grow that, if that was a good idea? Part of it too is we really need to have not only just social media, but we really need to have emails of people that are willing to give us that information. And I don't get the sense that we have a whole lot of that right now. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, none of that.
And that's okay. You have to start somewhere. And so, and I don't know if this is legal. I shared this with both Greg and Mike, but there are ways to engage people and get that information, like working with a local company, for example, Park Rose Hardware. If we're doing a leaf blower bit in social media, can they help us acquire a electric operated leaf blower that we can do a giveaway on? Again, I go back to the fact that I don't know if that's something we can do, that the city would allow us to do, but those are the types of things that people get excited about, where they would be very willing to fill out a form and give us their email to participate in a giveaway like that.
I know that. Go ahead. Why don't you finish? And I'll
no, you go. Right, go ahead.
I know that the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network has developed really as an extensive listserv, but they are not like the same as the Lake Oswego Sustainability Advisory Board. And so because they are an independent nonprofit, they can get away with doing this. But Lisa Adado was a communication person there for a number of years. And I know that had been like one of her central aims was just to create the largest email list that she could. And so that has really made a huge difference in terms of their ability to communicate in the city. So I think figuring out how to do something like that seems important. So I guess question for you, Dylan, it would be like, is that something that like a governmental organization like us could do? Or is that beyond the pale?
I mean, we do create email lists. I mean, we have like a newsletter email list, and
Right.
I'm trying to think if there's other. Yeah, I mean, we sometimes there'll be like, there's a construction. People can sign up for like a construction email list. It's just a matter of maintaining multiple email lists and kind of what the goal is and what we're going to send out to them and all, all the time behind all that stuff.
But Dylan, would we be allowed to do a giveaway? Is that something?
I don't know if we specifically can do a giveaway. It seems likely that it would be okay, but I'm not quite sure.
Okay. How would I find out?
I could ask legal that question too.
Good.
Or just other staff.
Okay.
Yep.
I think, I mean,
Good.
I'm trying to think, I think there's been other giveaways. It seems reasonable.
Okay, that'd be awesome if you could help us with that. And they're just simple things. And the other side of it is it helps us connect with those businesses too, local businesses that, I know there are a lot of small businesses in our community that are doing sustainable things, whether it's energy efficiency with lights or, maybe the car wash is reusing water and things like that. There are a lot of things people are doing. It'd be really cool if we could engage them as well. Maybe we could create a sticker that goes in their window or that they put on their social media accounts that indicate that they're a West Linn sustainable business. There are a lot of ways that we can link things together, and it starts just with talking to people, and whether that's through social media or when you're at the car wash or whatever the case may be, it starts to build a nice little group of people that are really engaged. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do. So I really love that newsletter you sent, Greg, from that Lake Oswego group. And so I added it to this fall campaign as an idea of something that we could put out on social media and supporting that effort. And then I don't know, there could be something that people do to get their HVAC system ready for the fall, where they're getting, going through a checklist to make sure it's sustainable and it's not all clogged up with dust and material that's making it more expensive and use more electricity. And then everybody loves gardens, so I'm sure there's a checklist for gardens that you all probably know a heck of a lot more about than I do, that can help people with anything from composting in their garden to that sprinkler system to get it weatherized, and anything else that you all might be more familiar with in terms of a checklist for getting your yard ready for the fall. But those are just some ideas. There could be a lot of other ideas. I don't hold the baton for great ideas. So if you guys have some ideas, that would be awesome, because it's a joint effort, right?
Right.
Yep.
So
I think,
that's just, go ahead.
yeah, I guess another question I would have for Dylan is whether we can create and operate a social media account that is tied to the city.
Good point.
I think that would be a harder sell. It's a possibility. It'd be something we'd have to approve with our communications team. We always are like, there's a lot of groups that have wanted to create social media accounts, and it becomes one of those things where if you were to have one, then other groups would want them. We have to moderate the content, and it just becomes, and we have to archive everything, and it just becomes a lot of work. So,
So what would be a good way to work with you, Dylan, in supporting a social media effort for the SAB?
I mean, I think, a lot of these topics are good topics. The HVAC system or electrifying tips, all these kinds of things are great. I think if people create content like small paragraphs and a photo, and then we could submit that to communications and they could put it possibly in the newsletter or the social media. They are always making like editorial decisions because they can't have it be too long and there's always lots of topics. So there's that, but there are times where they're looking for material, extra material. So if that material exists, it could get plugged in over time, especially if it's not time sensitive.
Okay.
And Dylan, is it possible to post things on the city's social media without including them in the newsletter?
Oh yeah, definitely. They're independent things. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And so actually one of my questions is going to be whether or not an announcement about the electrification fair that's being pulled together by the Lake Oswego group could be posted on the city's website.
Now that probably couldn't because we do have rules for promoting events that city
Okay.
has to somehow be involved. The city has to be, financially supporting it, or it has to
Okay.
be a city sponsored event in some way.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Those are-
what I'm hearing though is that we can, like, if we can't create a separate social media account, we could potentially create drafts of content that could be shared by the city.
Yes, yeah, that are sustainability focused, and yeah, they'd have to
Right.
go through our communications team and fit into the schedule of everything they're posting. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Is
Well-
there, would you be able to learn from them kind of like how much would be too much for that? Like, is once a month too much for them? Is once a week too much for them? Because I know that there is a limit there. We can't have them probably posting 2 things a day.
Right, right. I mean, just off the top of my head, I feel like, once a month might be reasonable. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm going to skip my social media post plan because that doesn't adhere to the city guidelines. But I did draft a little logo for us. And Dylan, this is another probably question for you if we're allowed to do something like that. But I feel like in order to build a brand, we need to have a logo. So it doesn't have to be this, obviously, but are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, again, I'd have to talk to the communications team. I think that might be something that's possible. Especially the city does have like some branding guidelines about fonts and colors and things. If we followed those,
Okay.
yeah, I think
Great.
that might be a possibility to put like on some of the website sustainability website stuff could probably be improved. That could be added there, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is this? The communications person now?
Danielle.
Oh, Danielle is still there. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
and Doug Erickson
Uh-huh.
are the main two. There's several others for different departments, but those are kind of the leaders of the group.
What is Danielle's last name?
Choi.
Okay.
All right. So it sounds like I can submit a plan and then the communications on the city side will determine how much of it they want to post.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, if we have some content that maybe as a group we can kind of agree on, yeah.
Okay. Okay,
If
cool.
that's what you're is talking about, yeah.
Good. And Tiffany, I'd be happy to help with the writing of content, like for the newsletter, for example. So we should think about. See, are the newsletters published 4 times a year now, or 2 times a year, Dylan?
The printed ones are twice a year.
Yeah.
And there's the weekly electronic one.
Yeah. Okay.
And is there a editorial calendar set out for those, or is it just whatever content you get, you put in the newsletter?
For the weekly one?
Yeah.
For the weekly one, I mean, there are recurring things that happen every year that, like in May, we promote like wildfire preparation, things like that. But yeah, often it's just kind of what's happening at the time, what's of interest, the events that are happening at the time.
Okay. Is it okay if I reach out to Danielle and or Doug and engage with them directly, or do you prefer that you manage that introduction?
Either way is fine. I mean, it would be nice for me to kind of talk to them, give them a heads up first, and I'm sure they would be happy to talk to you.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, well, that's it for my.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Yep. Appreciate you putting that together.
Of course.
Thank you, Tiffany.
You're
Oh.
welcome.
All right. We've got just a couple minutes left here in our block of time. We've got an item here, agenda item number 8. Any new business that anybody wants to see the board take up at the moment? I know we've not talked about leaf blowers in this meeting. Maybe that's something we can return to in the next meeting. Greg, thank you for forwarding that email from the Oswego Sustainability Network.
And they basically decided to do pretty much what we talked about at our June meeting, which is delay, coming up with any kind of proposal to the city council with regard to leaf blowers, and kind of primarily focus on education and communication with the city. I forgot to check with Rory to see whether he had a chance to talk with Paul Savas just about whether the county would be willing to help offset the cost of buying new leaf blowers for small landscaping firms. But he said he was going to do that, but I'll remind him and see whether he's had a chance to actually talk with one of the county commissioners about that.
Okay. So yeah, why don't we put an agenda item on the next month's meeting to chat a little bit more about this.
Yeah.
Any other new business?
Yeah, if I just want to jump in and kind of agree with you, Mike, I was just going back to the council goals, which is where we're trying to stay focused. And one of them is, SAB to recommend ways to reduce gas powered equipment use in West Linn, which we're doing some of that, but yeah, we want to maybe refocus on that in upcoming meetings. The other one is SAB advice on high impact projects using consultant assistance. So we're doing that one. So that's good.
Excellent. Okay. Then last item here is just to review any action items for us. So we had our chat with the Friends of the Willamette Wetlands. Were there any items for us to take away from that for us to be doing? I think we wanted to know if we could offer testimony or comment on behalf of the board. So I think, Dylan, we'd like you to consult with legal about the boundaries on that.
Yeah, I've got that on my list. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else with respect to the wetlands for us? I don't think I had anything in mind. Just pay attention to what's going on there, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds like, Dylan, you're going to try to keep moving along with the consultant contract once that's all squared away with the folks in legal and they're okay with the structure of the contract. And I guess we'll look for word from them or you about when we might want to schedule them for their first meeting with us.
Yeah, it seems like if the contract is actually agreed upon, if they could meet with us at our next meeting in September, that would be great.
Yeah. All right. As far as the social media and public outreach goes, I think there were a couple questions that we wanted to know about. One was the extent to which we could create content for the city's social media pages, and whether we can create, I guess I would wonder, with an email address list, reasonably use that for. Maybe that's an open-ended question there.
Well, I think one of the things about having a good email list is it allows us to engage with people directly. If they've agreed to get emails from us, then they're interested in what we have to talk about. And so that gives us a direct line of contact with them to talk about an event that we're working on, or we're going to be somewhere, or whatever the case may be.
So Dylan, if we had that kind of email list, do we need to like pass any communications through the city first?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would operate the same way. It would be the SAB creating content for the newsletter, sending it to the communications people, and then they would have to review it and send it off. Yeah.
And
The best way to move forward on a lot of these things is I can kind of give Danielle and Doug a heads up on some of these things, and then maybe Tiffany talk to them, and I can join that conversation, of course.
Yeah.
That would be a good way to start.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
And Dylan, would we be able to create our own email list? Like if we were to put out a request in the newsletter to people who read it and say that if you're interested in getting regular postings about sustainability efforts or events in the city or different issues, sign up for this email list so that the members of the public could decide whether or not they were interested in receiving it?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. We use, I think it's MailChimp. And you can create different email lists for different topics. Like I said, like there's a construction one, there's the big general newsletter, there may be a waterfront newsletter. So we do maintain a lot of these. It's just about adding more and asking people to sign up more.
Sure, right.
Sign up for emergency lists. Yeah.
But if we were, would we be able to send out postings on the general list that the newsletter would otherwise go to?
I mean, it would have to be, we could put it in the newsletter. I think, if they've signed up for the newsletter list, we can't necessarily throw them into another list, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We could put sustainability topics in the newsletter.
Okay. I don't think I had any other action items for us.
Sounds like it's it.
I would like to review the action items so I have my notes making some sense.
Okay.
So Dylan, a couple of things to look at: legal, something to do with the wetlands, legal boundaries, or I could do this in an email. I'm not sure. Mike, you seem pretty clear about those, but I'm not. What was that?
Legal boundaries? I'm not sure I'm remembering this one.
No.
No, it's boundaries on what we can do, like our participation.
Boundaries.
Yeah, can we testify on
the
board?
So what are the legal boundaries about what we can do? Okay. And Dylan's also going to keep moving along with the consultants and schedule the first meeting. We're hoping in September. Got that right?
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany, I know there's a lot of talk about communications and that maybe we can get people to sign up through the weekly newsletter because MailChimp can do different newsletters. So Tiffany, you're going to look to what extent we can create an email list.
Right. I'm going to work with Dylan first to get introduced to Danielle and Doug, and then Dylan and I will meet with them together to figure out all those moving parts of working with them to build a communication strategy for SAB.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I should have raised this during new business, but I know that Tiffany and I had talked about the possibility of writing some kind of op-ed for the Westland Tidings. I can talk with Terry about his speaking with the editor, and then Tiffany, if you'd be interested, I can try to get the gist of an op-ed written and then share it with you, and we can go back and forth and see like whether it makes